it's Liz Yuille from Old Stables Crafts. Thank you very much for joining me again today for my second video of the day. This is a video that I have made for Kylie Bertucci's International Blog Highlights. This is a post that she does once a month, and she encourages other people to share their work on her gallery, and people can vote for the one they like best, or in fact the 5 they like best. So there will be a link on my blog to the voting area of Kylie's website. So if you like this card, I would be thrilled if you would vote for it. The prize is to do a blog hop with her later in the month, which is always something that is really exciting to get involved in. I'm right away from Christmas and autumn. I am embracing the fact that it looks like we might be getting a couple of days of quite nice summery weather. So I brought out Seaside Notions just as a final homage to the weather and probably the end of summer. Anyway, so this is the card that I'm going to make. I'm using, as I say, Seaside Notions, but I'm also using Whale of a Time Designer Series paper. This is a really fun pack of paper, which you can see I have cut into quite a lot. So I've taken one of the scenes, and that is what I'm using as my background. And I say my background because I don't know if you can tell that, so this is the Designer Series paper as it is, but I've layered some vellum over the top, heat embossed, and then coloured from behind. So let me show you how I have done that. I do find it quite nice to have the vellum over the paper to begin with. I may well have to trim the paper down once this is finished because the vellum will buckle a little bit with the heat, but at the moment everything should be roughly the same size. So I still have my embossing buddy, and as I've said before, whilst I still have my embossing buddy, I'm still going to use it. Right, so Versamark ink. I'm going to start with the seahorse because that's the largest stamp that I'm going to be using. I might go a little bit further up this time, and there is method in my madness for that. So stamp that down. Now, one of the joys of stamping on vellum is that the Versamark ink doesn't dry very quickly, so it means you've got much longer to worry about getting your embossing powder over the top. So yeah, just a little plus point there. I'm looking for, I had, but I seem to have lost, a post-it note that I'm just going to protect my work surface with for the bits that I'm going to stamp off. Now I can see that there is my seahorse, so I'm going to come in yeah, about here with my kind of dots, which is what's going to go behind or underneath my sentiment. Now all the cards that we are making for this International Highlights are thank yous or gratitude, those sorts of things. So hence I'm using with gratitude. I'm going to just push that down a wee bit more. And I've got a sand dollar. I've only ever come across sand dollars once in my life, which was when I was on a holiday many years ago, when I was at college back in the early 80s. Oh, good grief. Back in the 80s. I went to the United States for 3 weeks, made the most of the fact that I had gone back to college, so could have nice long holidays, and did a tour of parts of the East Coast. And while I was in South Carolina, I spent some time staying with a family who had a place on Myrtle Beach. Gosh, this is bringing back memories. Sorry, I'm faffing now. And they had sand dollars on the beach there, and it was the first and only time I have come across sand dollars. But I remember them well, and they were really fun things to find. Right, I'm just going to bring in one shell to go down there, and I might actually do another one just going off the bottom of the page a wee bit. Okay, so that's all of the stamping done. Certainly on the vellum, that's all of the stamping done. So let me bring in my almost completely empty, and I must fill it up, gold embossing powder, and get this covered with embossing powder. And anywhere where I've got parts that I don't want, I'll be able to just brush away. So I'm not too worried about those. But yes, gosh, I hadn't thought about Myrtle Beach and that holiday for a long time. As I say, it was a year or 5 ago, but it was a great holiday. A bit more over my seahorse. And then I'm just going to bring in a dry brush and get rid of any bits that I don't want. So there has gone over, a bit extra there. And because this is vellum, I am going to check the back as well, because anything that shouldn't be on the back is going to melt just as if it was on the front and will show through. And it will show through as a rather nasty, dirty mark. So not something I want. Now there is a tiny bit there that is part of the stamped image, but I'm going to get rid of it because it's going to look like a smudge. Right, okay, so it's time for the trusty cheese board. And actually, before I bring that out, I'm going to just bring in my piece of Blackberry Bliss cardstock and stamp with gratitude, because then I can heat emboss back to back. So let's sort that out. And again, let's bring in the gold embossing powder. And a quick flick from the back. And then I can do all of my heat embossing at the same time. Now, while I'm doing that, public broadcast. One of the reasons I'm able to bring these videos is because people subscribe to my video channel. So if you are visiting and you haven't subscribed, I would be thrilled if you would subscribe. And if you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. And by all means, leave a comment to let me know what you think. So you can see that the powder is melting really quite fast. That is because it's on vellum. It does tend to melt much faster on vellum than on cardstock. So do bear that in mind and just be a little cautious. It looks as if, oh no, there's a little bit there that needs a bit more heat. And a little bit there. Okay, that looks there or thereabouts, and then I can bring this in, and you may notice that this takes a little bit longer to melt. It's not a huge difference, but there is a slight difference between the speed with which it melts on card and the speed with which it melts on vellum. Right, now we have the fun bit, so I'm turning it over to the back. And the colours in the paper are Balmy Blue, Blackberry Bliss, Bumblebee, Calypso Coral, Granny Apple Green, Just Jade, Pacific Point, Pool Party, Pretty Peacock, Shaded Spruce and Whisper White. Now, working on vellum, particularly from the back, but on vellum generally, your blends, which is what I'm going to use, will be a lot lighter than they would normally be. So do bear that in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay down light Pretty Peacock over the whole of the back of the seahorse. Now you can colour from the front, but what you will find is that the alcohol in the blends will tarnish the embossing powder and will bring some of that embossing powder into the colour and will make it go a little bit muddy. You can remelt your embossing powder if you're very careful. My concern would almost be more for what it's doing to your blends. So I tend to prefer colouring from the back. I just think it gives you a nicer finish, but by all means try doing it from the front. You can actually, if you're using the white embossing powder, you can use the blends to colour it and then remelt it. And again, I would just be a little cautious doing that about what it would be doing to your blends. I just want to add a bit more. This is, as I say, the light blend. I'm going to leave that to dry while I move on to another area. Now, one of the colours is Calypso Coral. So I have my Calypso Coral blends, but if I colour this is Calypso Coral, yes, this is the dark Calypso Coral. So let me just turn that over and you may be able to see that it's quite a lot paler. So I am going to use this as the background colour, but then I'm going to use something else to mimic the dark Calypso Coral, because Calypso Coral is actually quite a dark colour. I know it's in the subtles. I look at the subtles every time and think, why is Calypso Coral in the subtles? For me, it's almost a bright. I suppose the point is it's almost a bright, but not quite. But yeah, it's a weird one to have in the subtles for me. And then more over here. Oops, don't want that there for the moment. And I'm sure you're going to be wondering how I'm going to adhere this to my card front, which obviously I have done, and I've done it without adhesive showing through. So I will show you that obviously when we get to that point. Okay, so that's that. And then I've got soft suede for my sand dollar and my shells. And I'm just going to put a bit of the dark. Should actually have done these the other way round. What I should be doing is putting the light on and then adding dark over the top. So I will learn that the hard way. And do my sand dollar in light soft suede and then add some dark over the top, although actually for the sand dollar the only dark I'm going to use is in areas where I haven't got light, so it's less of an issue. So that's my sand dollar done, and then I'm going to add dark in the areas which are, for me, these are just the areas that are in shadow. And then add some shading to my shells. Right, okay, so Dark Cajun Craze is the colour I'm going to use to add a bit more definition to my coral. And that will fade nicely into the dark Calypso Coral. It will look absolutely fine when we turn this over. Okay, that's that, and then some dark Pretty Peacock. So I want it for the eye, and anywhere where I've decided there's going to be a darker area. Which can be anywhere, frankly. And here I am thinking, did I actually use this for my original colouring? I had a sneaking suspicion I did. So I'm just going to layer it up. What happens if I bring this in? Is this lighter? No, I think that was the colour I used. Who knows? Anyway, this is working fine, so if this is just layer upon layer of dark Pretty Peacock, then that's fine, it's working. Just down there. And I did check, you can get blue seahorses. So that needs to dry, but if I turn it over, you'll see that the colours are very much softer than you might imagine they're going to be. So the next thing to do is going to be to fussy cut this. Don't worry, I've done one already, so you don't have to watch me fussy cutting. I have done lots and lots of videos of me fussy cutting, so if you are a returning viewer, you will know that I move the paper, not the scissors. And you want to get used to using the same pair of scissors. And I don't even mean the same sort of scissors. So I have a pair of snips that I use all the time, and I know how they go. And I would not use a different pair of snips for my fussy cutting. So I'm going to pop that on there, which will give me one nice big area for gluing. And bring back in my piece of paper and let's press that down a bit more. Then what I'm going to do with this, don't need that, is obviously this is an area where I can put a reasonable amount of glue because we've already got something solid covering it. But there are also areas on the heat embossing that are quite fat, and you can just put the odd dot of glue on those and you can hide your adhesive that way. And because we've got this nice narrow nib on our liquid adhesive, you can get the smallest little dots. So just add those. Let's have one at the end of his nose. And then you do want to try and make sure you've got some on the edges, just in case. But as I say, there are some areas where you can see that there's a nice big blob of heat embossing, and that is a really good place to add your adhesive. So nearly done, right in the corner there. In the middle of our sand dollar. Right, okay. So let me take my paper and pop that so that it is reasonably well lined up. And I can turn it over. I'm going to have to trim it a little bit because of the wrinkling. But I'm going to pop that to one side for the moment under my enormous great big block. And let's see, do I have, oh, I don't have, let me grab some Whisper White cardstock just so that I can do a liner for my card. Hopefully this is going to be big enough, just so 3 7/8 by 5 5/8, marvellous. So I just want to grab my sand dollar and my Sahara Sand ink, and again I'm going to grab my post-it note, just ink that up. And yes, I do know that I didn't clean off my stamp before putting it into my Sahara Sand. It's fine. A little bit of Versamark in your Sahara Sand isn't going to cause a problem. What I do need, which I thought I had around, there it is a blender pen, and you can move the ink around a little if you haven't got enough, which for some reason I don't. You can pick up some more and then just come in, add that to the areas that are darker on a sand dollar because they're in shade, and then just move the rest of the ink around so that you have a sand dollar on the inside of your card as well. And then I've got that really doesn't want to stay there, does it? I've got a Blackberry Bliss card base again, and fold that in half and burnish. That's good. And then just grab my seal and a cat hair, which is poking out, so I don't want that. Or at least get it poking in. I love my cats, but dear oh dear, they get their hair everywhere. Okay, and then pop the dollar towards the bottom of my card, like that, and that's then going to mirror the one that's on the front. Lift that up, and I'm going to bring in my little chopper because this will be perfect for trimming this off. So I want to come in and take that off. And then basically what I've done is not put my vellum onto my paper particularly straight. So I just need to trim off where the paper is sticking out. Okay. And then add some more seal to this. I am going to use more seal than I would normally use, purely because it is the only thing that is really holding this together, and it is only paper and vellum. So, and then pop this onto our card front. And press from the back as ever. So there we are, a fun little With Gratitude card. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and please hop over to Kylie's website and vote for me and any other cards that you like when you're over there. That would be amazing. I would love to be able to hop with Kylie again. So if you would vote for me, as I say, I would be very grateful. If you have any questions or comments about this, please leave those in the description or below the description bar. There's a link to my website, which is where you'll find the vote button for Kylie's highlights blog. There's a link to that in the description bar. And I think it's time for my bed. So I'm going to go. Thank you very much indeed. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.